More businesses vandalized, small fire set, trash tossed into the streets, a bullet striking a Cincinnati police officer's helmet, and protesters placed in flex cuffs. The overnight arrests and cleanup ahead as a second night of violent protests sweeps across Cincinnati.
This is a WCPO 9 breaking news alert.
Good morning, Tri-State on this Sunday morning, the final day of May. I'm Julie O'Neill, joining Tamika Artis for team coverage. We are following breaking news as protesters once again march in the streets overnight in Cincinnati. The violence started downtown late last night, with protests then moving north to the Clifton area. WCPO 9 News has team coverage of the overnight protests. I'm joining anchor Tamika Artis this morning. Owners and employees of businesses in Cincinnati's Clifton neighborhood waking up to the bulk of the damage overnight. Fire set, as mentioned, windows broken, an officer hit in the helmet with a bullet. Boy, they want whoever shot that bullet.
Yeah, exactly, Julie. Certainly a wild night in the Clifton area. Much of that activity happening after 10 o'clock last night. That's when the city imposed a curfew in downtown Cincinnati, over the Rhine, the West End, and the Banks. Anyone still out on the streets after that time was told that they would be arrested. So large crowds of people started moving toward the University of Cincinnati and continued their activities throughout the night. WCPO 9 News reporter Jasmine Miner is live this morning in Clifton with a look at the damage and where things stand right now. Jasmine, good morning.
Good morning, Tamika. Well, the only reason that Cincinnati police officer was not injured or worse was because he was wearing a ballistic helmet, to be specific. And that just talks to the magnitude of what was going on here down on McMillan Street. I mean, you see these large rocks, right? They were used to smash through this pizzeria and these windows. I mean, just look at how much damage that is. In fact, if you actually walk through the sidewalk or walk on the sidewalk through McMillan, you can't really go very far without stepping on a piece of glass. And that caused some restaurants like Cane's to be a little more proactive with look at how much they've got the entire restaurant completely boarded up. That it's not because there was damage, that was simply because of the intensity of what was going on and they wanted to get ahead of things. But take a look at the video from early this morning of what it looked like on these streets and how just intense everything was. You see a line of police officers, Ohio State Patrol troopers, SWAT team walking towards protesters, trying to push them back. You even see that man limping there. It's unclear if he was hit with something or maybe he tripped over something, but that's the kind of intensity that we're dealing with. In fact, when things really started to pick up is when the chants of "don't shoot, I can't breathe," people holding up both of their hands, grew louder and louder over here on campus. We saw police having to use tear gas as some people were setting small fires in the streets, and many people placed in flex cuffs as police tried to get things back under control. Now, this is something that they're going to having to keep doing as we move along the next couple of days. I mean, there are protests scheduled for later today in Inwood Park. There's a protest scheduled for a week from now. So it goes to show that this is not something that is going to go away anytime soon until these protesters say their demands are met. I'm reporting live in Clifton. Jasmine Miner, WCPO 9 News.
Jasmine, let's talk about those protesters, not the criminal behavior. The city kind of said that these were sort of outside agitators, if you will, but the people who are organizing these protests, what is it that they are demanding? What do they want?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about police brutality, that's pretty broad, right? That's a broad term. So to be more specific, what are these protesters looking for? We actually spoke to one of the organizers the other day, and this is what they told us. They said they made a list, and one of them is put policy in place to end police brutality through reform of the current law enforcement system. Harsher punishments for police was on there. They also went on to say justice for all victims of police brutality by reopening those cases. They want all of those that were jailed due to protest activity released from jail. And so those are just some of the things that they're looking for as immediate changes that need to be made in order for some of these to calm down. And to be honest with you, Tamika, I don't know if any of these protests are really going to go away until some of these demands are met. Tamika?
All right, Jasmine, thank you so much. A lot of that remains to be seen, that is for sure. In the meantime, curfews have been lifted all around the city of downtown Cincinnati this morning after another night, as you heard there, of protests and some arrests. WCPO 9 News reporter Lisa Smith is live outside of Cincinnati District 1 headquarters with the first night of this curfew, what it looked like. We know those officers worked 12-hour shifts, a long night for law enforcement.
Yes, definitely, Tamika. Fortunately, right now things are quiet and they are calm here outside District 1 headquarters. We have seen several of those police officers ending that very long shift after a very long night trying to enforce this curfew that went into effect last night at 10 p.m. Now, during the night, they did make some arrests. We have some video of the scene in Over-the-Rhine with some of those arrests that were made. Of course, all of this comes on the heels of that video that we have all by now seen of the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis as a police officer was attempting to arrest him. This morning, anchor Julie O'Neill interviewed longtime Cincinnati police specialist Scotty Johnson. And so listen to what he has to say about how what happened in Minneapolis has a ripple effect on police here in Cincinnati and elsewhere.
We got to make sure that bad cops are held accountable and bad cops are prosecuted to the full extent of the law, because what happens when bad policing and bad police officers get off, they cause every police officer across the country to possibly have to deal with what we're witnessing.
And again, these are some of the images of what we saw in the streets of Cincinnati last night. We have not heard yet from Cincinnati police how many arrests were made, how many of those were curfew violations, and what will the charges be. Now, the curfew has been lifted, as we know. It was lifted at 6 o'clock this morning, but there will be another curfew tonight at 10 o'clock. And then the question will be, will there be any changes to the parameters of that curfew? For that, we'll have to wait and see. Reporting live, Lisa Smith, WCPO 9 News.
All right, Lisa, thank you so much. And of course, all of this happening as many businesses are just trying to get back on their feet because of the pandemic. The curfew forced many of them to shut down early last night. Jefferson Social and the banks, they closed their doors at 9 p.m. So did the Taste of Belgium. But business owners that we spoke to say that they were understanding of the situation.
Well, I think that the city is doing the right thing. I think it's important to get this under control, and people have the right to be upset and protest. I just hope that they do it peacefully.
All right, again, many businesses in OTR and downtown boarded up their windows early yesterday evening in the hopes of preventing the destruction that happened as protests got out of control on Friday night. Julie.
Stay with WCPO 9 News for continuing coverage of the overnight violence in Cincinnati. We will be breaking in with live coverage for any major developments throughout the day. We'll also have more tonight, of course, on WCPO 9 News starting at 6 and online anytime at WCPO.com.